Big news when it comes to the WWE return of Ronda Rousey, plus several NXT stars scheduled for the Royal Rumble. We also have an update on Johnny Knoxville's WWE Royal Rumble storyline and the Jon Moxley reference on SmackDown. Scripted or improv? All this and more in today's WWE News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's talk about the big news surrounding Ronda Rousey and WWE's desire to see Ronda Rousey return at possibly the Royal Rumble on Saturday, and at least having an idea for her to have a match at WrestleMania this year. Now, this is a big story that broke last night, and several people are now confirming it, that WWE officials have reportedly had talks about a Ronda Rousey return as of late. Now, a report from Fightful Select, which dropped last night, noted that Rousey's WWE return has been discussed internally to the point now that it's considered to be, quote, a poorly kept secret, and has been mentioned to talent outside of the company. Rousey was a name tossed around as a potential Royal Rumble entrant, or one to at least have some participation in the Royal Rumble later on this week. There's no official time frame on Ronda Rousey's return, but word from within WWE is that she has been training, and some believe it's a matter of when and not if she returns to the squared circle. It was also said that this is the most chatter on Rousey's comeback since she first left in 2019 after WrestleMania. Now, Rousey and husband Travis Brown welcomed their first child together back in late September, a daughter. The former UFC champion, as I mentioned, has not wrestled a single match since working the WrestleMania 35 main event in 2019. But this story has more legs than just the Fightful Select report, because Ronda Rousey is reportedly scheduled to be at WrestleMania 38, according to Dave Meltzer on the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer radio show. Now, Meltzer noted that he presumes Ronda Rousey will be at this Saturday's Royal Rumble pay-per-view. While he's not 100% sure whether she'll be in the match itself or not, the former Raw Women's Champion is scheduled to be at WrestleMania 38. The impression is that Rousey could end up facing Becky Lynch at the grandest stage of them all. That match is under heavy consideration for the two-night event. It was also revealed that the ex-UFC fighter has been training hard ahead of a return to the ring. However, it's unknown whether or not this run would be a one-off. The expectation is that it would not be a full-time run again as it was previously. In addition to Fightful Select's report and Dave Meltzer's reports, Ronda Rousey has also reportedly met with a WWE official last week. As I mentioned, we spoke about this whole desire to have her return, spoke about possibly being scheduled for WrestleMania, spoke about possibly her returning on Saturday at the Royal Rumble. But in an update, PW Insider is now reporting, bear in mind this is a three separate outlets reporting essentially same versions of the story, or slightly different versions of the same story. So PW Insider is reporting that at least one WWE official flew to California after last week's television tapings to meet with Rousey. There's no word yet on what came of that meeting. Furthermore, WWE sources have confirmed that Rousey's makeup artist and stylist that she used when she was last working for WWE, Abraham Esparza, is scheduled to be at the Rumble on Saturday and then at Monday's Raw. Not that that means anything, but people like to put two and two together. That booking reportedly has been locked in for several weeks now. Now, regarding a Rousey return at the Rumble, it was noted that multiple sources who are aware of Rumble plans say, quote, it's all on Rousey at this point and whether or not she wants to pull the trigger on a return. With that said, WWE is ready for her to return and they want her back to work WrestleMania 38. So obviously, there's a lot there. There's a lot there and there's a lot of stories. I think there is definitely 100% something there. This isn't one of a case of, for instance, we've heard this a lot, full transparency. Since Ronda Rousey left WWE to go have a child, and she had an injury as well and all that kind of stuff, and the pandemic, I'm pretty sure every single WrestleMania, or the build-up to every single WrestleMania, there's been a story saying WWE wants her back for that year's WrestleMania. It definitely happened early, prior to the pandemic, 2020. There was a lot of chatter that she would be at that WrestleMania because she hadn't been there for a year, and she was going to maybe confront Becky Lynch after the match against Shayna Baszler, right? Shayna Baszler, 4 horsewomen of the UFC or MMA. It kind of played out like that. People thought that Becky was going to defeat Baszler and out would come Ronda Rousey, and that would set up a match for them next year, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, the pandemic happened, so that didn't happen. Last year, there was some discussion of maybe with it being the first show back in front of fans and all that kind of stuff, then maybe Ronda Rousey could come back. But of course, by that time, I think she was pregnant. She just announced her pregnancy, so that wasn't going to happen either. My point being is that we've heard this story a lot, but as the report does mention, this is really the most substantive one, certainly I've seen, since WrestleMania 35 in 2019. You've got Fightful Select, you've got Dave Meltzer, and you've got PW Insider all saying, actually, WWE really want Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey's training hard for a return. It's just a case of whether or not Ronda Rousey wants to come back. If she's training hard for a return, I would speculate that she's coming back. My concern would be timing of everything. I think, obviously, look, she gave birth in September. It's not a ton of time for a recovery, but this is a former Olympic level, elite level athlete. If anyone can turn it around physically between now and then, it's obviously Ronda Rousey. So I don't have any doubts about her ability to recover, even though that, pregnancy can be very traumatic for a woman in terms of, physically, but I have, again, no doubts about that. When I say the concern about timing is that, and I've seen this take on Twitter quite a lot, on social media, that, people have wanted Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch for ages, and so why are you complaining that you're going to get it now in 2022? People wanted Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey in 2018. They wanted it in 2019. Fast forward 3 or 4 years later, I just don't know if it's the right time for it, because if Ronda Rousey comes back, that means it's Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch, WrestleMania, Raw Women's Championship. Bianca Belair is not in that match, and she should be challenging for the championship. Considering the build she had last year, she won the Rumble, she won the title in the main event of WrestleMania, she was booked strong. And then what happened? Becky Lynch comes back at SummerSlam. She loses in like 10 seconds. And everyone went, It's a part of a long-term thing. It's a long-term build. It's a long-term thing. Because what's going to happen is eventually Bianca Belair will win the Rumble again. And then she'll beat Becky Lynch this time. She'll have another WrestleMania moment. And she'll be firmly cemented as the top star or the next big female star in WWE. That's the plan. And if Ronda Rousey comes back and Becky Lynch wins, okay, that cements Becky Lynch as a star, but she's already a big star. She's already arguably the biggest female star in the company, or just one of the biggest stars in the company, full stop, irrespective of gender. And I know we've wanted that match for a while, and I know the fans have wanted that match for a while, and I know that, irony of ironies, WWE didn't want to do that match for WrestleMania in 2019. The original plan for WrestleMania 35 in 2019, the female main event, was to be Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. It just so happened that Becky Lynch got over, and they couldn't do the match that they were originally planning to do at Survivor Series because Nia Jax broke the face of Becky Lynch, that they had to change plans, and they added Becky Lynch to WrestleMania, and they had to put Charlotte Flair in there because she's Charlotte Flair, of course. So the irony being that all these years later, now they're suddenly desperate to do a match they didn't want to do previously. It baffles the mind, and it's kind of typical WWE, isn't it? They're so on the pulse of about 4 years ago. That's just typical WWE. Now, don't get me wrong. In terms of box office, in terms of social media, in terms of trending and what have you, Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch, in terms of headlines and in terms of marquee, is a bigger match. Whatever night it's on, I would assume probably we would get night one is the main event of night one of WrestleMania is Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch. Night two, the main event, is Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns. I think that's the direction they're going to go in. Is it just the right time? Because what does it do for Bianca Belair? What does she do? Does she go to SmackDown? Maybe. Maybe she wins the Rumble, and maybe she challenges Charlotte Flair, and maybe she beats her. And if that's the direction they go in, then I think, okay, they've pivoted nicely. But then what happens when it comes to Sasha Banks? What happens when it comes to Bayley? Did they get involved in maybe being a tag team again, and suddenly we get a situation where it's the Bella Twins and maybe Trish Stratus and Lita, because we know Lita wants to have another run, and you have Bayley and Sasha Banks in there. That's a big match. Or maybe you have Lita versus Sasha Banks, and maybe you have there's options. There is options. It's just I don't know if I have faith in WWE to get it right. But look, I know Ronda Rousey rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and she said a lot of things about WWE fans and them being disrespectful, not knowing what they want, this, that, and the other. There is no doubt that she is a ginormous star, and WWE know that. And WWE's star power when it comes to the women's division has waned slightly. I think that's their own doing because they struggle to build new female stars that aren't the 4 horsewomen, and yet when they have an opportunity to do so in Bianca Belair, they fumble the ball. So it's curious, but it's a massive story, and make no mistake, if Ronda Rousey shows up Saturday at the Royal Rumble, they're going to be talking about Ronda Rousey. That's the first name people are going to be talking about coming out of that show. And if, say, the Women's Rumble main events the show on Saturday, safe bet that Ronda Rousey is going to be appearing. So keep an eye out when it comes to that one. Speaking of the Rumble on Saturday as well, I spoke about earlier on before the intro some NXT involvement. Now, of course, the Royal Rumble is always full of surprises. And this year, it could include NXT 2.0 stars, even though, it must be said, even though a couple of weeks ago it was saying that WWE did not want to rely on NXT stars when it came to the Rumble. Well, it's been reported that NXT 2.0 talent is set to at least be backstage for the show. On the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer radio show, Dave Meltzer noted that a lot of wrestlers from NXT are set to be at the event this weekend. Now, it's unknown whether they are set to be competing or not, or just be working as, just being backstage. Sometimes they bring people in just to work dark matches or be part of the environment, etc. Of course, with the current COVID situation, the need for backups is pretty crucial, so I'm sure they've probably got 30 names that they would like. But some of those names could go out because of COVID issues. Therefore, they need people available. Now, current NXT champion Bron Breakker and the recently renamed Gunther and Raquel Gonzalez are all expected to be at the Rumble. However, it's not confirmed if any of them are going to be wrestling. As I spoke about before, there was a report a couple of weeks ago that said that they didn't want to rely on NXT 2.0 names for the Rumble because they want to have some degree of separation between the NXT 2.0 stars and the main roster. But I think considering the current COVID situation and the likelihood that there might be people that drop out for various reasons, they're going to need some backups. And I think it's smart to have those developmental bits there as well. So I think that's kind of the situation there. As far as names I'd like to see, I think Bron Breakker I'd like to see in there because he is legitimately could be the next big thing in WWE. They mentioned Gunther because I think that he can't stay in NXT for long because his money's on the main roster. We could see names like Tommaso Ciampa, Pete Dunne, Roderick Strong. We've seen them doing dark matches or main event tapings before television, whether it be Raw or SmackDown recently, so I think that's a possibility as well. Speaking of people that are going to be at the Rumble, Johnny Knoxville is going to be there, and we have a bit of an update when it comes to his plans, because of course last year, the Royal Rumble was a big kickoff for a celebrity storyline involving Bad Bunny that lasted all the way until WrestleMania and included an actual WrestleMania match for Bad Bunny. Now, that isn't going to be the case when it comes to Johnny Knoxville, though, this year, because Johnny Knoxville's WWE run is reportedly ending at the Royal Rumble this Saturday. Now, Knoxville has been working a Rumble program with Sami Zayn, and word now via WrestleVotes is that this storyline is scheduled to conclude at the Rumble on Saturday as both men compete in the 30-man Royal Rumble match. It was noted that WWE is working on another celebrity appearance for WrestleMania 38, but there's no word yet on who that might be. It was noted that the name is not available yet because it's either top secret, which is unlikely, or because it's undecided. I think given recent years at WrestleMania and given the success of Bad Bunny last year, WWE realizes that should be... celebrities always appear at WrestleMania anyway, but I think they're going to make it a real hard and fast, like it's going to happen. There's going to be at least one match that involves a celebrity every year going forward because of the success of Bad Bunny. As I mentioned, they've done it for years. For years, they've always had people in matches, celebrities in matches at WrestleMania, but I think it's becoming like there's a spot ready every single year. But Knoxville's not going to be that. The reason why, of course, he's made these television appearances for WWE is to promote his film, Jackass Forever, that hits the theaters on Friday, February 4th. So that's why he's going to be doing that. So don't expect Johnny Knoxville to wrestle at WrestleMania. One would assume, he's promoting Jackass. What's Jackass famous for? The unbelievable stunts and crazy stuff. One would assume that, obviously he's not winning the Rumble, but he's maybe, I don't think he'll dump out Sami Zayn, but I think Sami Zayn might throw Knoxville through a table or he's going to do some kind of stunt because it's Johnny Knoxville. That's what he does. And you know what? He'll get some buzz. I like Johnny Knoxville. I like the Jackass films. So I'm curious, to be honest with you. Finally, there was a Jon Moxley reference on SmackDown on Friday by Seth Rollins, which obviously got a lot of people talking, considering he actually said the word Mox as opposed to Dean Ambrose. But WWE actually reportedly planned the Jon Moxley mention during the Seth Rollins promo on SmackDown on Friday. This is what Rollins had to say, quote, "Since we're out here for a celebration, we should celebrate the Usos, who in truth are the cornerstones of your bloodline. They're the ones who make everything you do possible. They're the ones who hold you up. Just like Mox and I held you up during the Shield, the Usos are your pedestal." Now, again, a lot of people said, "Oh, Mox, he didn't say Dean Ambrose. What's going on there?" Well, in an update, the line where Rollins name-dropped the AEW star was 100% scripted ahead of time, according to Ringside News, which, again, debatable, I know. But the Moxley mention was reportedly approved ahead of time. This was not a case of Rollins name-dropping the former Dean Ambrose on his own. Now, obviously, this is quite surprising, considering WWE has edited out Ambrose of old footage of the Shield. Not everything, but they do their best to avoid him. But he was not edited out of the recent Royal Rumble video package, which featured a look at the history between Rollins and Reigns. So it's just WWE. They change the rules every single week when it comes to this. But guys, what did you think of today's WWE news? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Peace.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.